You know, if you're a tourist in Paris, there are plenty of things that are hidden you probably won't come across. The Jardin des Plantes in the Fifth, with the world's coolest natural history museum. Des Lorrains, the old cookware store that has a portrait of Julia Child on the wall. Des Rolles, which has a taxidermy display, which is incredible, on the second floor. Or the Poilin Bakery in the Sixth. You can go downstairs and look at their 14th century oven. Now, when I was recently in Paris, I found two desserts that were slightly different, slightly hidden, something I was not really aware of. The first is Parisian Flan. It's essentially a pastry cream baked in a round crust about 4 inches high. Kids on their way home from school might stop at a bakery and get a slice. Absolutely terrific. And then the second recipe, oddly enough, is Babas Au Rhum. Now, I don't like this dessert. It's too much booze, it's too heavy. So I was at a restaurant called Le Baratin, the 20th. They brought what looks like a muffin split in half, the baba, and they gave me a bottle of rum and a big bowl of whipped cream. It was really terrific. So let's go into the kitchen here at Milk Street and figure out how to make two hidden Parisian desserts. One is Parisian Flan and the other is Babas Au Rhum.
Funding for this series was provided by the following.
Moe salmon comes ready to cook, ready to grill, ready to season, or pre-seasoned, and ready to eat. And an assortment of flavors for an assortment of people. Moe salmon.
We pass down traditions here. We create and connect. We enjoy special moments, some simple, some grand. The heart of your home is the kitchen. The heart of your kitchen is the galley.
On this trip to Paris, I set out to meet pastry chefs who are breathing new life into old classics. One of them was Sébastien Bras. His father invented a dish called coulon au chocolat, or the original molten chocolate cake. Now, it's a dessert that is definitely for high-end pastry chefs, but it's really mesmerizing to watch.
Donc ce chocolat coulant a été imaginé à la fin des années 70, au début des années 80, au cours d'une sortie de ski en famille. Au retour de cette sortie de ski, toute la famille était frigorifiée. Il avait fait une journée avec un temps exécrable. Donc quand on est rentré à la maison, on avait tous très froid. Ma mère, Ginette, à l'époque, avait voulu nous réconforter en nous faisant un bon chocolat chaud, bien épais, avec une pointe de sel dedans pour exhauster les arômes. Et ce moment familial où tout le monde était heureux, réjoui de se réchauffer autour de ce chocolat chaud, c'est cet instant en famille qui a donné l'idée et l'envie à mon père de recréer un dessert qui soit inspiré de ce moment-là. Première étape est la confection de la ganache et la fabrication des noyaux, que l'on met ensuite au surgélateur. Donc ça, c'est la première étape importante. Donc évidemment, ça a pris un certain nombre d'années pour arriver à créer ce concept technique, pour adapter l'épaisseur du biscuit, pour adapter la fluidité de la ganache et recréer cet instant assez magique passé en famille. 12 heures après, environ 6 à 12 heures plus tard, lorsque les noyaux sont bien surgelés, on va préparer notre pâte à biscuits. Les épaisseurs de chocolat de biscuits sont parfaitement réglées. Et donc ce coulant, comme c'est devenu un classique du restaurant, on le sert aussi ici à Paris. Celui qu'on a fait aujourd'hui, c'est la version originale. Premièrement, c'est le centrage du noyau au cœur de la pâte à biscuits qui est très important. Et ensuite, on va refermer le coulant, toujours pareil avec la pâte à biscuits. On remet l'ensemble au congélateur et au moment de déguster, 20 minutes avant la dégustation, on va placer nos coulants au four à 180 degrés avant de les servir à nos convives. Je crois qu'on a dû créer depuis de nombreuses années pas loin de 120, 130 variétés de coulants différentes. Il y a quelques années, j'avais voulu l'arrêter pour passer à autre chose et faire des choses différentes, mais la plupart des clients nous le demandaient, donc j'étais obligé de le remettre à la carte.
Next, I went to Amazonia for my lesson on Paris flan.
Dessert, it's about sharing. When I have a tart in front of me, it remembers me when I was younger with my family, buying a tart on a pastry shop for the whole family, sharing the tart on Sunday for after lunch for dessert, you know. My name is Stefan Jimenez. I am from Paris. The flan, it's actually a pastry cream. Most of the time, it's perfumed with vanilla, cooked on a pot, and after, when it's boiling, you cook it again in the oven. So it's more about cooking the outside than the inside. So to make it, it's very easy. We mix the flour and the butter, and when it's crumbled texture, you add the rest of the ingredients. You mix it a little bit, and then after you remove it from the mixer and put it on the table and do the phrasage. The phrasage is to press on the dough with the palm of the hand, just like this. Finishing by hand and put it in the fridge after for 1 hour. When you roll it, it's perfect, and you can use it right away to put it in the mold. We bring it to a boil, the milk, the cream, and the vanilla bean together. At the same time, we mix the eggs with the sugar. When the milk and the cream are boiling, you add 1/3 of the liquid into the eggs and sugar and cornstarch, mix it together, and then bring it back to the pot. Never stop mixing and cook it until it's boiling. Make sure it's very thick before you pour it into the mold. When I put the cream into the mold, I put it back in the fridge for 10-15 minutes, so I have a crust on top of my cream. And voila, the flan is ready. That's the biggest thing I can recommend to people when they make pastry. Just respect the recipe, and normally it comes perfect.
You know, once in a while, I've been accused of making fun of French cooking. That being said, I was in Paris recently and had phenomenal food. And I met a guy, Stefan Jimenez. He introduced me to a classic recipe. You think pastry cream, you think heavy, right? Well, it's actually really light. And I don't say that like smiling because it's a joke. It really is light. It's absolutely phenomenally delicious. I think it's my #1 dessert of all time. But it starts with a pastry crust that's a little bit on the lean side. Now, if you have 2 cups of flour, normally with an American pie pastry, you might use, 14 to 16 tablespoons of butter. But we're gonna use 8. And first we're gonna start with just a tablespoon of sugar and some salt. The next thing we're gonna do, and I've said this over 40 years of doing this, is we're not gonna cut the butter in until it has pea-sized pieces. By the way, I just found out who the person was who came up with that ridiculous concept. It's the Boston Cooking School cookbook. This is the 1941 edition. And Fanny Farmer, she says, until shortening is evenly mixed in bits no larger than peas. So I get to blame Fanny Farmer. But the French cut their fat into the flour. They do that because it coats the flour, there's less gluten production, and it's much easier to roll out and you get a more tender pastry. It's not as flaky, but it's more tender. So we're gonna cut this in until it looks like coarse sand and it turns a slightly yellowish color. I do not want to see pea-sized pieces of butter in here. So now we need liquid, 2 egg yolks, and a 1/4 cup of water. So we're adding a little bit more fat, but it's still fairly lean. Okay, so I'm gonna put it on a piece of plastic. Now, at Amazonia, they did a phrasage, actually, which is a classic French method. It means you push the dough with a heel of your hand away from you, bring it back, do it 2 or 3 times. You get a nice check and a little bit of layering. But this way, you can shape the dough, use the plastic. If you're not good at working with dough, I definitely would do this the day before. Let this sit in the fridge overnight. If you are pretty good at working with dough, just give it an hour or 2 in the fridge, and then we'll come back and we'll start to roll it out. So while I was in the kitchen at Amazonia with Stefan, they use pastry rings very often in Paris, okay? There's no bottom. And when he fitted the dough, it's sitting on a double mesh, which means when you put it into the oven, all that heat can go up into the bottom. This was really a great technique, and you can find this if you want, but obviously most people do not have that. So we decided to use a springform pan, and this actually works as well. You will get a thoroughly cooked bottom. So here we have the dough. You want to take this out at least 10 minutes before you roll it out. I'm gonna beat it up a little first. What I like to do when I'm dealing with a circle is I want to start with my left hand here and then bring this around a 1/4 turn, okay? And then turn the dough, 1/4 turn, like that. So you get out to about 10 inches. So you can start from the center, find places where you need to expand it. You always want to leave a little extra room. So if this recipe says a 13-inch round, I'd probably go to 14, just so you have a little extra. So what does that look like? Well, let's take a look. That's looking pretty good. And this is a nice lean dough, as I said, which means it's easier to work with. The more fat, the stickier things are. So, okay, put that down in. So now we're going to gently press it to the side. You want to press down into the corners. Take your time. It looks a little messy at first. Don't panic. It'll be okay. So now we just want 2 inches. So we're just going to make little marks, or you can do it by eye if you like. Okay. So now we have those little marks. We can cut the dough. So now we're going to deal with the issue of pre-baking. We're not going to pre-bake this. The way to avoid pre-baking, unless you have that special equipment, is you need to freeze something like this. So you can put it in the freezer for 30 minutes, or you can refrigerate it, then put it in the freezer. But it needs at least 30 minutes in the freezer. But that freezing is going to reduce the amount of contraction when it bakes to give it time to set up. Let me give you a simple formula you can remember so you can make pastry cream anytime you want, if you want to. It's 3 cups of dairy, let's say 2 cups of milk, 1 cup of heavy cream, a half cup of sugar, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, and 3 eggs. We're going to double that. So we're going to use a full 4 cups, quart of milk, and we're going to use 2 cups of heavy cream. And we're going to heat this up and bring it to a simmer. So we have a full cup of sugar, half a cup of cornstarch. This is vanilla paste. Now, this recipe uses vanilla extract at the end. You always want to add vanilla extract at the end with a liquid like a custard. But we like to use either a powder or a paste. They're nice, strong flavor. You're going to use a tablespoon of either or. Here, we're going to put this in at the beginning, and then we're going to reserve the tablespoon of vanilla extract to the end. If you don't have powder or the paste, that's fine. Just double the extract to 2 tablespoons and put it in at the end. We're also going to add the 3 whole eggs and the 2 yolks to this mixture. Now, if we were just going to put this directly into 6 cups of really hot liquid, you'd have a chance of maybe cooking the eggs, which you don't want to do. We're going to add about 1/3 of it slowly to the egg, sugar, cornstarch mixer and whisk it in to temper it. This also helps to dissolve the sugar in the cornstarch. So you want this on a medium high. You don't want it fully on high. You want to stir, you want to whisk. I would do it gently. Now, once you start to see it bubble, give it about 30 seconds more. Again, gently whisking. And that's it. You don't want this is about 180, 185 right now. You don't want it to go to 200 or higher. Okay, we're good. What you really want to do is put this through a fine mesh strainer. Now, here's a little trick a pastry chef taught me, which is to use a ladle, because obviously the bottom of the ladle is curved just like the inside of this mesh. And it does a great job pressing something through a mesh. And we're going to add that vanilla extract. So here is the frozen crust. By the way, if you're not getting excited at home watching this, there's something wrong with you. You should be really excited about this. Maybe I just liked custards as a kid or something, I don't know. And I'm just going to take an offset spatula and smooth it out. So you'll notice that there is a little bit of room between the filling and the top, which is what you want, because it will rise a little. Okay. So now this goes back into the fridge for about half an hour again. So the surface starts to develop a little bit of skin. So when we bake this off, it's not going to souffle up and rise. There is a little skin on the top here, which is going to prevent the pastry cream from puffing way up over the pie pastry on the side. So we get asked this question all the time. Does it matter that as the baking time change, if you have a dark pan versus a light pan? So if you have a dark springform pan, we would bake this for 10 minutes at 400 degrees. If you have a light colored pan like this one, we're going to bake it 20 minutes at 400 degrees. Then, since we have a light pan, we'll finish it off at 350 for about 35 minutes or so. If we'd had a darker pan, we'd let that go 40, 45. So it does matter, and we have different baking instructions based on the pan. So I just have to ask, are you excited? Because I'm excited. That comes off nicely. Here's a trick Stefan taught me, which I thought was really interesting. Like, how do you cut when you have a crust and then you also have something delicate? Well, he takes a serrated knife, cuts across like that. So you get the crust started. So we're gonna cut down and just through the skin a little bit, like that. And then go to our backup. Now, get down on your knees and praise Stefan Jimenez and all French pastry chefs, because this is as heavenly as it's gonna get on this earth. It almost just melts in your mouth. So this makes absolutely no sense to me, I know, pastry cream. But it's very, very light, has a wonderful texture. Maybe it's a function of cooking it on the stovetop, thickening it, and then cooling it down, and then putting it back in the oven. Maybe that double cooking is what does it, but it's a very different texture than the pastry cream you get from just top of the stove. This is how life should be lived. A Paris flan, pastry cream in a crust. Sounds basic, but it is heavenly.
Babas Au Rhum are small individual brioche-like cakes that are often heavily soaked in a really boozy rum syrup. At Restaurant Astier in Paris, we had a lighter, fresher version, and that's what we brought back here at Milk Street to try. So first we're gonna make this syrup. We have added orange to our syrup, which gives it a nice citrusy flavor, but also kind of takes down a little bit of that alcoholic bite. So I'm gonna take 4 good-sized zest strips. Those are gonna go in my saucepan. And with any syrup, we're gonna do sugar. This is about a cup, and some water. And I'm also gonna add some of the juice from the orange. And orange and rum are really classic pairing, so it works really well for this. And that's about 3 tablespoons. So we're gonna cook this until the sugar dissolves, and we've reduced it down to about 1 cup. So now that the sugar is dissolved and this is reduced down, I'm gonna take out our orange peel and chop that up and set it aside. So this is kind of candied now because it has the sugar syrup on it. I'm going to chop it in small pieces because it's going into the dough and we want it to really distribute nicely. So put that aside. And then I'm going to stir in my rum. So we're just going to let this cool down and set it aside. So now we're going to make our little individual cakes. This dough is very similar to a brioche, and you might be a little intimidated by that, but it's very easy to make at home. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So I've got some eggs and egg yolks here. I'm going to add some water. I'm going to whisk this together. Okay, and set that aside. In here I've got our flour, some sugar, yeast, and salt. So I'm just going to mix this to combine that. And I'm going to slowly add our eggs. So we're going to beat this until we have kind of a rough dough. So I've let that go for about 2 minutes. Now we're going to add our butter, and that's going to smooth it out, and then we're going to let it go a little bit longer. This is an enriched dough, so butter is something you would often add, butter, oil, something like that. But you want to add it slowly and let each piece kind of incorporate before you add the next. So you really want to make sure you're using room temperature butter here. Cold butter is going to seize up in this. It's not going to incorporate well, so it has to be room temperature. Now that all of our butter is incorporated, we're going to let this go for about 7 to 9 minutes because we really want to build some of that gluten because these are really delicate cakes, but you want to make sure there's enough gluten to hold them when they're baked. Okay, so we've let this go for about 7 or 8 minutes. And there's a couple of things you want to look for. You want your dough to be shiny. You can see it's kind of started to clear the edge of the bowl a little bit. And when I pick it up, it's going to leave a rope that's going to hold together when I pick this up. If it breaks immediately, then you're not there yet. So now that I know that my dough is where I want it, I'm going to add our candied orange zest and run the mixer for about a minute just to incorporate all of that. This smells amazing, by the way. It smells like Christmas. The bread, the orange, all of it. This would be a great little holiday treat, I will say. Okay, I think we're good. So now what I'm going to do is clean the dough off of my dough hook, get rid of that, and then I'm going to take the bowl off the mixer. Make sure everything is in the center. I'm going to cover the bowl with plastic wrap and let it sit at room temperature to rise so it will double in volume for an hour to an hour and a half. So this dough's been rising for about an hour and a half. We're almost ready to put them in the mold. I want to show you how to butter these. This is 2 tablespoons of butter. It seems like a lot of butter, but you want to make sure there is plenty in these so that you can pull them right out and they don't stick. This makes 8 cakes. So what I'm doing is I'm only going to butter the 4 cups that are on the outside of the tin. So that leaves the middle cups empty, but gives some air circulation so they bake nice and evenly. So that's why we're doing it that way. Turn around and do the other 4. And then we're gonna put them in, and they have to rise one more time. So we'll get those ready for that. All right. I am going to fill these about 2/3 of the way full. This dough is very stretchy and very sticky. That is how it's supposed to be, because that's what makes these so fluffy and light. So what you want to do here is use a big spoon and even a smaller spoon to help take some of that off. So use the other spoon, or honestly, if you want to oil or butter your hand, which is what I'm going to do, you can actually use your hand. So it is a little bit hard to gauge how much is in each one. So you might have to go back and take some out of one, put it in another. I can see these are a little overfilled, so I'm going to do that. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. So you can see that was a little sticky. It's kind of messy, but that's why you need so much butter, but they're going to be delicious, trust me. So now we're going to spray some plastic wrap on one side, cover these, and let them rise for 35 to 40 minutes until they double in size. So these have been rising for about 40 minutes. So these are going to go in a 350-degree oven with the rack in the middle position for about 16 to 18 minutes. Right, these are ready. I wish you could smell these. It smells like a bakery in here. This never gets old. Look at how beautiful this is. It's so pretty. So we're going to let these cool for about 5 minutes, and I'm going to take them out because I want to brush them with some of our syrup. Okay, so these have cooled for about 5 minutes. I'm going to put them on our rack. And then this is the thing that really kind of makes them look, I don't know if I want to say professional, but something you might get at a bakery is when you brush this syrup on them, they get so shiny and beautiful. Just a really nice finishing touch. So we're going to take this rum syrup and we're going to brush each cake all over, and then we're going to let them sit on the rack for another 5 or 10 minutes if you want to serve them warm, or you can let them sit for a few hours and then put them in an airtight container, and then you could reheat them wrapped in a little bit of foil at 350 for about 8 to 10 minutes if you want to do it that way. Okay, and now we'll make our whipped cream. So when you're ready to serve these, you want to make your whipped cream. So I've got a cup of heavy cream, and I'm going to sweeten that with 2 tablespoons of our rum syrup. So just enough sweetness and a little bit of rum is really nice in this. And I'm just going to whip this for about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, so that looks about right. You want your cream to be as soft and billowy as your little cakes. You can serve these warm or at room temperature. I kind of like them warm. And then I'm going to take about a tablespoon of our syrup and drizzle it on each side. So that's going to soak in really nicely, but it's not going to be really soggy. We're going to add a little bit of our whipped cream. And there you have it. A beautiful classic dessert. That syrup's got a nice rum flavor to it, but it's not overpowering this cake. The cake is soft. A little bit of orange zest in there. Delicious. This is another show-stopping Parisian dessert. You can get this recipe and all the recipes from this season at milkstreettv.com.
Recipes and episodes from this season of Milk Street are available at milkstreettv.com, along with shopping lists, printer-ready recipes, and step-by-step videos. Access our content anytime to change the way you cook.
The new Milk Street cookbook is now available and includes every recipe from our TV show. From cacio e pepe and skillet spanakopita to Brazilian-style carrot cake and Thai coconut soup, the Milk Street Cookbook offers bolder, fresher, simpler recipes. Order your copy of the Milk Street Cookbook for $27, 40% less than the cover price. Call 855-MILK-177 or order online.
Funding for this series was provided by the following.
Moe salmon comes ready to cook, ready to grill, ready to season, or pre-seasoned, and ready to eat. And an assortment of flavors for an assortment of people. Moe salmon.
We pass down traditions here. We create and connect. We enjoy special moments, some simple, some grand. The heart of your home is the kitchen. The heart of your kitchen is the galley.